Throughout history, one of the most profound questions human beings have asked themselves is a deceptively simple one. Who am I, really? Beneath our routines, social roles, ambitions, and fears lies a deeper uncertainty about identity and purpose. Many people spend their entire lives chasing expectations placed upon them by family, society, or culture, without ever stopping to ask whether those expectations truly reflect who they are. Few philosophers explored this problem with as much intensity as Friedrich Nietzsche. One of the most provocative and psychologically insightful thinkers in modern philosophy, Nietzsche believed that most people never truly become themselves. Instead, they inherit ready-made values, beliefs, and ambitions from the world around them. From a young age, we are taught what is considered good, respectable, successful, and meaningful. These rules are rarely questioned because they provide comfort and structure. Yet Nietzsche argued that this comfort comes at a price. When we blindly adopt society's values, we slowly lose contact with our individuality. We become part of what Nietzsche famously called the herd. The herd mentality is one of Nietzsche's most important psychological insights. According to him, societies tend to favor conformity, safety, and predictability. Just like a herd of animals that moves together for protection, human groups instinctively discourage those who stand out. Individuals who question traditions, challenge moral rules, or pursue unconventional paths are often treated with suspicion or ridicule. History is full of examples of people who were mocked or rejected simply because they thought differently from the majority. This pressure to conform can be subtle, but it is incredibly powerful. It can appear in school when children are discouraged from expressing unusual ideas. It can appear in workplaces where creativity is sacrificed for stability. It can even appear in personal relationships when people are expected to behave according to rigid roles. Over time, many individuals learn to silence their curiosity, their creativity, and their deeper desires simply to avoid conflict with the herd. Nietzsche believed that escaping this mentality is the first step toward discovering your true self. But doing so is not easy. To question the values that surround you is to risk isolation. When someone begins to challenge widely accepted beliefs, they may feel misunderstood, judged, or even rejected. Yet Nietzsche saw this discomfort as a necessary stage in personal development. In his view, becoming yourself requires courage, the courage to stand apart from the crowd and think independently. However, breaking away from the herd does not simply mean rejecting society for the sake of rebellion. Nietzsche did not encourage mindless opposition. Instead, he encouraged individuals to engage in deep self-examination. The goal is not merely to destroy inherited values, but to understand where they come from and whether they truly resonate with your inner nature. This process of self-discovery can be painful. Nietzsche often described personal growth as a form of inner struggle. When we begin to question our beliefs and motivations, we encounter uncomfortable truths about ourselves. We may discover that many of our ambitions were never truly ours. We may realize that certain goals we once pursued passionately were actually attempts to impress others or gain approval. These realizations can be deeply unsettling, but they are also liberating. In one of his most powerful ideas, Nietzsche suggested that suffering is not something to be avoided at all costs. Modern culture often encourages people to pursue constant comfort and convenience. Yet Nietzsche believed that struggle plays a vital role in shaping strong individuals. Without challenge, we remain passive and dependent on external guidance. Difficulty forces us to confront our limitations, clarify our priorities, and strengthen our character. This is why Nietzsche often emphasized the importance of solitude. Periods of isolation allow individuals to step back from social expectations and listen to their own thoughts. Throughout history, many great creators, thinkers, and artists spent long periods alone, reflecting deeply on their experiences. Solitude is not necessarily loneliness. Rather, it can be a space where authenticity begins to emerge. As people move further along this path of self-discovery, another question inevitably arises. If traditional sources of meaning lose their authority, where can we find purpose? For centuries, religion provided clear answers to this question. Religious traditions offered moral rules, explanations for suffering, and visions of ultimate meaning. But Nietzsche famously declared that in the modern world, God is dead not as a literal statement, but as a description of cultural change. Scientific progress and secular thinking had weakened the unquestioned authority of religious belief. Nietzsche, worried that this loss of traditional meaning could lead to nihilism, the feeling that life has no purpose at all. If old values collapse and nothing replaces them, people may fall into apathy and despair. Yet Nietzsche did not see this as the end of human potential. Instead, he saw it as a turning point. If meaning is no longer given to us by tradition, then it becomes our responsibility to create it. This is where one of Nietzsche's most famous concepts enters the picture, the idea of the Übermensch, often translated as the overmen or supermen, contrary to popular misunderstandings. Nietzsche did not describe the Übermensch as a literal superhuman being. Rather, he imagined an individual who possesses the strength and creativity to define their own values. Such a person does not rely blindly on social norms or inherited beliefs. Instead, they take responsibility for shaping their own life. Becoming such an individual is not about domination or superiority over others. It is about authenticity and self-mastery. The Übermensch represents someone who transforms their experiences, both joyful and painful, into a source of personal growth. They do not wait for society to tell them what is meaningful. They actively create meaning through their choices, their passions, and their actions. Another powerful idea in Nietzsche's philosophy is the concept of amor fati, which means love of fate. Nietzsche believed that true strength involves accepting life in its entirety, including suffering, mistakes, and failures. Most people spend a great deal of energy wishing their past had been different. They regret their failures, resent their hardships, and imagine alternative lives that might have been easier. But Nietzsche proposed a radical alternative. What if you could embrace everything that has happened to you as necessary for the person you have become? Loving your fate does not mean enjoying every painful moment. Rather, it means recognizing that your struggles are inseparable from your growth. Every challenge you have faced has shaped your perspective, your resilience, and your understanding of the world. This perspective becomes even more striking when we consider another of Nietzsche's thought experiments, the idea of eternal recurrence. Imagine that a mysterious force told you that you would have to live your life again and again, infinitely, exactly as you have lived it so far. Every decision, every joy, every regret would repeat endlessly. Nietzsche asked whether this idea would fill you with despair or with affirmation. If the thought of reliving your life endlessly feels unbearable, it might suggest that you are not truly living according to your deepest values. Perhaps you are following a path chosen by others, tolerating situations that drain your spirit, or ignoring aspirations that feel meaningful to you. But if you could embrace the idea of eternal recurrence with enthusiasm, if you could say yes to your life exactly as it is, then you would be living with extraordinary authenticity. In this way, Nietzsche's philosophy invites us to rethink our relationship with values. Many people assume that moral values are fixed and universal, but Nietzsche believed that they are often historical creations shaped by power structures, cultural traditions, and psychological needs. This does not mean that values are meaningless. Instead, it means that individuals must actively examine them. To discover your true self, you must ask difficult questions. Which beliefs truly belong to me? And which have I adopted simply because they were expected of me? Which ambitions reflect my deepest interests, and which are attempts to gain approval from others? Which fears prevent me from expressing my individuality? Answering these questions requires honesty and courage. It may involve changing your environment, reevaluating relationships, or pursuing paths that feel uncertain. Yet Nietzsche believed that this process is essential for anyone who wishes to live a meaningful life. Ultimately, the search for your true self is not a destination but an ongoing transformation. Identity is not something you uncover once and for all. It is something you continually shape through your choices, experiences, and reflections. Each moment presents an opportunity to reaffirm or redefine who you are. Nietzsche's philosophy challenges us to reject passive existence. Instead of drifting through life guided by inherited expectations, he encourages us to become active creators of our own values. This path is demanding, often lonely, and sometimes painful, but it also offers a rare form of freedom, the freedom to live as a genuinely unique individual. In a world that constantly pressures us to conform, this message remains as powerful today as it was in Nietzsche's time. To become yourself is not merely a philosophical idea. It is a lifelong act of courage. It means confronting uncertainty, embracing your individuality, and taking full responsibility for the life you choose to live. And perhaps the most important lesson Nietzsche leaves us with is this: the true self is not something waiting to be discovered like a hidden treasure. It is something that must be forged, shaped, and created through the way you live.